It is June 2026, and we are at the cusp of having a new Star Fox game come out for the first time in 10 years. And I'm not going to talk about it today. Instead, I want to talk about this game here, primarily at least. You see, Star Fox is a bit of a unique series in which its first game has been rebooted, reimagined, and remastered a lot. I did an entire video about how the series has seen at least 3 restarts in the past. With each of these restarts, there have been concepts that have been reworked or even abandoned. And the most prominent of these concepts are, in my humble dragon opinion, the characters. Being sent to Retcon City is one of the worst fates a character can experience. Second, perhaps, only to actual character assassination. Star Fox is a glutton for character abandonment. The franchise so often leaves behind characters in the dust if they don't have some tie to the core story of the Lylat Wars. Part of that is due to how Nintendo has fallen into the habit of just retelling the same story over and over and over again, hitting that big red Make Lylat Wars Again button whenever they decide to try to revive the series. But while a lot of characters have been sent out of the airlock, at least for now, several members of the Space Furry cast have landed in a really peculiar spot in terms of the canon. And it's not just that they only seem to be found in games that no longer seem to be in the current continuity. They've been replaced. Or have they? Is there still room in this big, wide Lylat system for them? Or are they best left to rest in peace? Their stories destined to fade over time, kept faintly alive on wiki pages and in the video essays made by dedicated fans.
Good luck.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but when I think of comics, I think of high-intensity action scenes, zany characters, questionable fashion choices, and wacky dialogue. The Star Fox comics from 1993 really embody this, I think. Slapped in a gaudy, skin-tight suit and forced to stare Fox McCloud in the face as he waves his dead mom's wedding dress around, no really he does that, is our first subject, the big-eared beauty named Fara Phoenix. To my knowledge, Fara was the first prominent woman in the Star Fox franchise, although she never made an official in-game appearance. Created by the Star Fox comics artist Benimaru Ito, she played a pretty significant role in the comics themselves. Later, the devs did consider adding her to Star Fox 2 as an additional cast member. However, she was scrapped in favor of newcomers Miyu and Fay. Fara had quite the backstory in the aforementioned Star Fox comics, which covered the rise and fall of Andross several times over. Her official title was Chief Test Pilot for the Cornerian Army, seeming to have worked closely alongside the developers of the R-Wing. Her ship is a palette swap R-Wing, and while she never formally joined the Star Fox team, she flew alongside them enough that one could probably have considered her to be an unofficial 5th member of the team. Her father, a spaceship magnate, briefly appeared in the comics as well, solidifying that she came from a rich family before setting about on that #grind set for Corneria. However, because it was the 90s, Fara did fall victim to 2 tropes. The first being that she was the girl role, which meant that basically she was the only girl in the story, and also that she got damseled and distressed basically right out of the gate. While she did get to have moments where she got to hold her own, she more often than not was used as a writing device to exposition dump to the reader about various bits of lore. And then there's this awkward scene here, which I can't not mention, where Fox talks about how she looks like his mom, even though she doesn't. Like, it's not even close. When Star Fox got rebooted with Star Fox 64, the Nintendo Power comics became even less canon than they dubiously were in the past. Fara was nowhere in sight with this reboot and not even mentioned in the side material. And with Star Fox Adventures came the final nail in her coffin. Unfortunately, with the merging of Dinosaur Planet into the Star Fox IP, the position of Fox's love interest fell to an aged-up Crystal, one of the original game's protagonists. It was a move that launched no small amount of discourse in the fandom. What? But Crystal is barely a character! They should have brought Fara back! Protested the Blue Vixen's detractors, forgetting the first rule of everything ever is that you should never, under any circumstances, pit two queens against each other. I won't go into the details of these debates because the only ship wars I love to talk about are the ones involving Arwings and Wolfins. But basically it boiled down to this waifu is better and this is why. With a lot of people making a lot of claims about Fara being an in-depth character compared to Crystal, which I'm not sure I entirely agree with. That being said, I have never understood the idea that Fara and Crystal can't coexist. Fara's backstory is built solidly into the Lylat Wars and the early days of the second generation of Star Fox. I have been digging around for this lore and can't seem to find anything that contradicts it, but I do believe she predates not just Beltino Toad, but also Yaru Dapon as someone who contributed to the Arwing's development. A character being a test pilot for the Arwing has a lot of fun potential, and we have no female rep for the Cornerian army, at least until Crystal potentially joins the CDF in command. I mean, a ship like the Arwing had to get test piloted, and you have a test pilot character right there. Why not utilize her? Slippy is the team's engineer, and I love that for him. But I don't think it makes much sense for him to troubleshoot stuff on the fly, pun semi-intended, while the team is on missions. He can barely fly the thing as it is sometimes. I don't think we need to make him multitask. Having an Arwing support team would just make a lot of sense to me, especially while Team Star Fox is in the field. And for that support team, I think it should be Beltino, Yaru, and Fara. In fact, as much as I love Yaru and all of his sketchy, slimy glory, I almost feel like Fara would have just been a better pick for a tutorial guide. I said what I said. While there has been no sign of her in the upcoming reboot, and frankly, I have low expectations that the game will deviate much from Star Fox 64, I feel as though there's still room aplenty for her in this series. This idea that Fox can't have multiple love interests is a holdover from writing practices 3 decades ago. I'm a homebody introvert with anxiety, and I've dated at least 3 people. So I don't see why Fox couldn't have had multiple love interests in his life over his years as a mercenary. I hope we get at least a single nod to her existence in Star Fox 2026. I think she deserves a chance to debut someday in a game. Star Fox 2 is a game that was cancelled and then, much unlike many of your favorite content creators from the early 2000s, uncancelled. Despite being largely developed in the mid-90s, it saw no official release until 2017, which remains perhaps one of the most baffling decisions Nintendo has ever made, but one that I am definitely a fan of. Given its 11th hour cancellation at the end of the Super Nintendo's life, a lot of things about the game were known really just due to promotional material, including the inclusion of 2 new Star Fox teammates, Miyu and Fay. If Star Fox 2 had released when it was intended to, they would have been the first ladies in the series, at least in terms of games, because apparently women didn't exist in the original game or the Lylat Wars. For legal reasons, that's a joke. Despite the extended delay before the game was released from the depths of Nintendo's vault, Miyu and Fay were actually quite adored by the fandom for a long while. Given that not much was known about either of them, Speculation about who they were went wild for quite some time, with some people theorizing that Fay was the niece of General Pepper. With the game's formal release, we received incredibly brief descriptions about them in the game's manual, which read, Miyu, an advocate of the old maxim, the best defense is a good offense. Fay, the daughter of an aristocratic family, she has relinquished high society and taken up arms to defend her planet. While never formally given last names, fans have long referred to them as Miyu Lynx and Fay Spaniel, although Fay's name has occasionally been depicted as Fay Dog or Fay Pepper in various fanworks. Star Fox 2 programmer Dylan Cuthbert has spoken up in recent years, stating that when the team was creating these two characters, his idea for their full names had been Miyu Swift and Fay Sinclair. Now, much like the case with Fara, when the Star Fox series was rebooted in the late 90s on the Nintendo 64, there was no sign of Miyu or Fay in this new iteration of the series. And that makes sense on a surface level, right? They were in the sequel, so it should only make sense that if Nintendo was telling the story again, they should be in whatever sequel there is to Star Fox 64.
Hello?
Wait, who are those two? Alright, so put on your tinfoil hat because while this is not confirmed, the sudden arrival of Bill and Kat in Star Fox 64 when they were not present in the original Star Fox or really in what we knew of Star Fox 2 is kind of suspicious. We know that Star Fox 64 borrowed ideas from Star Fox 2. To name two major ones, it borrowed the idea of Starwolf as a rival team, and it borrowed all-range mode. Bill and Kat being replacements for Fay and Miyu respectively is not something that's super on the nose until you really sit back and do a thinky-thonk about it. Bill and Kat are, well, a dog and a cat. Fay and Miyu are, while not the same kind of dog and cat, are still a dog and cat duo. Bill and Kat function in a similar way in Star Fox 64, being guest characters that show up to help the team out. Fay and Miyu were slated to be comparable pilots, both flying in R-Wing interceptors. While I can personally understand people being rather dismissive of the idea that Bill replaced Fay, I think there's a strong argument that Kat replaced Miyu. When selected, Miyu blows a kiss towards the player in a flirty way, which is something quite on brand for Kat's character as well.
Beautiful! I could kiss you for that.
That is something of circumstantial evidence, though, and I fully acknowledge that. What's far less circumstantial is this earring on Miyu's model, which happens to be in the same place as the earring that Kat Monroe wears in Star Fox Zero, as well as the upcoming Star Fox 64 remake. This earring is absent in Miyu's full-body art, but it's present in the game itself. It's suspicious, and implies to me that the intention was for Kat to replace Miyu. Since Bill is considered to be something of Kat's equivalent on other planets, it then follows logically that Bill could have been intended to replace Fay. I have nothing to confirm this, but I just have a gut feeling that this is probably the case. And I am quite baffled by it. Sure, as a writer, I can understand the idea of revising characters and maybe relocating them to a different role. But Bill and Fay feel like two very separate entities, and Kat feels fundamentally different than Miyu, even though we have so little to work off of from Miyu's personality. Looking at her dialogue in Star Fox 2, she strikes me as a confident, skilled pilot, rather than a playful and teasy flirt. Maybe she was reworked due to the devs being concerned that she would simply be too similar to Fox and or Falco, who are both characters that seem to have a lot of confidence in their abilities. I don't really know the answer to this though. But regardless, and I know I'm not alone in this opinion, I still feel like Fay and Miyu are characters that are different enough that they don't even feel remotely like the ones who may have replaced them. That being said, I think with a bit more fleshing out, Miyu and Fay would be great re-additions to the Starfox cast. While adding 2 whole characters would certainly do a lot to shift the Starfox team dynamics, I think that they could be, at the very least, temporary hires for the team, or support characters. If I were to incorporate them into the modern era of Starfox, I would have them specifically be highly skilled officers from the Cornerian Defense Force that are assigned to help the Starfox team with special missions. From there, I think they could continue to make appearances as guest characters on various planets as representatives of the CDF. Maybe they could provide intel for the Starfox team, or help fight against bosses, or help with objectives for different routes, or maybe they... Oh, I got a little carried away there. Sorry. Now that being said, there is one more reason that I do think Fay and or Miyu have not come back yet, but I will be saving that for after we talk about this next character. As mentioned previously, Star Fox 64 inherited several ideas from its once cancelled but not anymore predecessor, Star Fox 2, one of which was the idea of a rival team to the Star Fox Squadron. While Star Fox bolstered its ranks with 2 more pilots, Star Wolf evidently didn't really care to match their numbers. Not that they really needed to, with the Star Fox team only deploying 1/3 of its members while the other 4 go on vacation or something? Hey, wait, why aren't they helping too? Wait, what is this? The whole Lylat System's in danger and they're just like, not gonna help? Really? Star Wolf's early iteration is definitely not the same as its 64 version, which is obvious from a glance. Wolf notably has a scar across the opposite eye that he would have an eye patch on, and there's a distinct lack of nepotism as well. Those familiar with the standard Star Wolf crew will notice immediately that either someone hit Andrew with a shrink ray, or he's missing entirely, replaced by this guy. This is Algy. We know extremely little about him. We don't even know his last name, actually. I think he's a Tarsier? Is that how you say that word? When Star Fox 2 was released officially, the website featured a small blurb about him, stating, Algy, rumored to be the most devious creature in the cosmos. He exploits the weaknesses of his targets with merciless precision. His dialogue does corroborate this brief description. What's curious is this early Star Fox 2 concept art, which I believe was shown off alongside a lot of other concept art when the game released. You can see it absolutely does not feature Algy at all. Instead, it features Andrew, confirmed by his name written nearby in katakana. One may assume this art, drawn by the renowned artist Takaya Imamura, was made after Algy was replaced by Andrew. But the story gets more interesting because apparently this art is from 1994, during the game's development. However, if you look at Star Fox 2's credits, you will notice that Imamura is not listed as the graphic designer for the game. Instead, he is listed under special thanks, with the credited graphic designer being Masanao Arimoto, who has worked on a ton of Nintendo games. While the credits list graphic designer, I'm led to believe that this also includes character design. In the modern day, we would probably consider these 2 jobs to be separate, but especially in this era of game development, people often wore multiple hats in the game-making process. With that being said, I don't know exactly what all was Imamura's work and what was Arimoto's. This picture is obviously Imamura's, as he has a rather recognizable art style. If it's actually from 1994, then it'd be an early concept, meaning Andrew came first only to be replaced by Algy later, which could have been Arimoto's doing. When Imamura returned to work on Star Fox 64, it seems like he reinstated Andrew as the 4th member of Star Wolf, and Algy got retconned entirely. If that's confusing at this point, think of it this way. Basically, two guys made blur bows, and whoever was in charge got to put their blur bow into the game. That's what I think, and after digging around, it seems like I'm not the only one believing that either. Algy has never been cited so much as even a hair since Star Fox 2, having seemingly been retconned into oblivion. While I can't determine exactly what happened here, it's feasible to think that maybe Algy was retconned purely due to not being one of Imamura's creations. And I do not believe that was done maliciously. I believe it was done because it was a matter of creatives having differing visions and wanting to utilize their personal creations rather than someone else's. But that could explain why Fay and Miyu never came back either. Or Fara. Or, well, quite a number of characters. This explanation certainly makes sense. However, when I was researching for this video, I did happen to notice something about the statement Dylan Cuthbert made earlier. When asked about what species Fay and Miyu were, Cuthbert directed such questions to Imamura, not Arimoto. But if Imamura's involvement was very early in development, and Fay and Miyu were brought around a little bit later, like it seems they could have been, then why would Imamura know that? Was Imamura more involved with Star Fox 2 than a lot of people were led to believe initially? It's possible that he misspoke. It's also possible that it's not that deep, or that he only directed them to Imamura because he has a notably closer relationship with him. But it's a detail worth mentioning, because I often see a lot of statements made about Imamura's involvement not being terribly deep with this game, and I feel like this little implication contradicts that. I also want to point out that while it's true that a lot of characters he did not personally design, did not go on to make it into future games, the series has been stuck in a 20-year limbo, with the Lylat Wars story being remade once every 10 years. Maybe some of these characters haven't reappeared again because there's simply been slim opportunities for them to be reworked into other areas. Now, do I still think they could have been? Yes. But do I also recognize that my vision and Nintendo's vision may be totally different? Also yes. Regardless of what the truth is, Algy has not been seen again, and I do think that's a shame. While he has an arrogant nature, what personality we do see appears to differ from Andrew's in terms of flavor. Andrew is haughty and overconfident due to his familial ties with Andros, while Algy's vicious zeal seems to come from his belief in his own talents. If the series is truly rebooted, it's possible Starwolf won't see any roster changes in future games. But we're in an era where new hands have been given the franchise, so anything's really possible. If they do decide to follow the steps of previous games and have Wolf kick out Pigma and Andrew, I would like to see not just Panther brought back, but Algy too, bringing the Starwolf team back to 4 members, equal to their rivals once more. Star Fox 2026 is shaping out to be a big release, with Nintendo promoting the series to a level that we really haven't seen in a long time. So many characters in this cast have not had a chance to make it into a game for around 2 decades now. While I hope we see a lot of new faces in the future, I think that a lot of longtime fans would love to see a host of familiar ones as well. All of them deserve another chance, from the ones who just haven't made an appearance in some time, to the ones who have seemingly been replaced entirely. The Lylat System is big enough for more than just an insular cast. While there's definitely benefits to the tightly knit group of characters that have seen rebirth after rebirth, I can't help but feel as though this status quo has made the Lylat System feel small. And as hot of a take as it is, I feel like it does a disservice to the franchise itself. Epic space wars and daring gambits to save the star system don't feel nearly as important when the world feels empty, devoid of people to even save. We've been told in the past that there's populated planets out there who need our help. But I don't want to be told this info anymore. I want to see it. I want to feel it. While the upcoming remake of Star Fox 64 does promise to make the environments themselves feel more detailed and frankly lived in, I hope that expanding the cast is also considered. And I also just really miss my wife Tails. I miss her a lot. And I think these guys are neat. Like, come on, they're so neat. We should bring them all back. Thank you for watching today's video. It was not supposed to be this long, but I got carried away. Oops. Oh well. I keep telling myself to write short videos and then they're like never short, but I guess that's what happens when you're just a chronic yapper that hasn't shut up since the early 90s. Oh well. And before someone goes, but wait Amalia, where's Saber? Why didn't you talk about Saber? Did he get replaced by Fox in Star Fox Adventures? Oh look! A distraction!
I don't see.
Girl, this is why they haven't brought you back in 20 years.